Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secret to Stargate, where I talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
It is good to be back. I've just had a lot of stuff going on. My kitchen exploded, so took a little
It's good
break,
to have you back.
Yeah. Thank you for taking over the hosting duties while I was gone. I really appreciate that.
It's what we do.
Indeed.
It's what we do.
Today we're discussing the 13th episode of Season 1 of Atlantis, Hot Zone. While exploring the city, the team led by McKay encounters a deadly nanovirus in an ancient lab. The virus causes them to hallucinate and then die, prompting a citywide lockdown. Dr. Beckett and McKay discover that the virus is non-organic and targets humans without the ancient gene. Shepard and Taylor, who are equipped with hazmat suits after being trapped in the very mid-2000s training room, navigate the quarantined city. They attempt to destroy the virus with an EMP, but this fails, leading Shepard to detonate an aqueduct generator above the city, causing a nuclear EMP pulse that successfully disables the nanites. Crisis is averted, but questions remain about the virus's origin and the potential for future conflicts between the military and the civilian authorities. What are your thoughts on this episode, Jeff?
Yeah, this one it's fun to see McKay kind of in charge of a team, because I think so far we've only seen him on Shepard's team and maybe in charge of Zelenka, but here he's kind of fully leading a team, which is cool. And yeah, you get to explore the city a little bit. You get we were talking in Slack, it's the first mess hall. First appearance of the mess hall, so we'll see that quite a bit in the rest of the series. And yeah, it's not action heavy in terms of there's not really any gunfighting except for a couple shots. And it's very sciencey, but I mean, we do get the Naquita generator explosion, which is always cool to see something like that. So, and yeah, good. McKay, I think it was a great episode for him because he kind of gets to learn the cost of what it means to lead people, because he loses some of his team, and but he's still McKay at the end of the day, so he doesn't seem to take it too hard at the end of the day. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
Awesome. What about you, Victor?
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks for the Atlantis science team. We lost 2 in the previous episode, and then we lose 5 in this episode. So we're just kind of going through our scientists here. But yeah, so after writing The Storm and the Eye, Martin Garrow was basically told by Brad Wright to write something cheap. And so that's why we get this essentially bottle episode that's just filmed on existing Atlantis and Puddle Jumper sets. And yeah, it's fine. It's a good, outbreak type story. We get some good McKay moments. Not a lot of humor from the Zelenka and McKay duo, just aside from the very beginning. But yeah, I'd say it's a good middle of the road episode.
Yeah, I did like that opening with them quizzing him on the prime numbers and gets them all wrong.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I probably would have a similar success rate, so I think it's understandable. I like the character interactions in this episode. McKay as the leader of a team is an interesting dynamic because he's so sarcastic. He's not exactly who you'd think of to be your peppy, get everyone gung ho and good to go. He's so quippy, and that I feel like that could be a detriment to the team. But it is nice to see him taking on that role and how he kind of pulls it all together.
Yeah, and there is some good drama in this episode too. I mean, we do, like, right before the credits, I think we lose 2 members of the Atlantis expedition, which is, we haven't lost a lot of members of the team up till this point. We lost a couple at the beginning of the storm and a couple last episode, and it's kind of horrible because anybody who's come in contact with them, we soon learn, has basically, what is it, like 6 hours to live. And so everybody's kind of retracing their steps, and we know that it's highly contagious and stuff. So that's played up to good effect, I think. You mentioned the mess hall scene there, Jeff, where at one point somebody who we know is infected is transported into a crowded, mess hall. So there's some good drama that comes from that. And then there's also good drama that comes from kind of Weir and Shepard, who have had maybe one contentious scene up until this point where they kind of had to settle things out on the balcony. Now they are, and poor Bates is brought into the middle of it, Sergeant Bates, where, he has to make the decision whether or not to open the door to let Shepard out of the training room so that he can try and stop Dr. whatever his name is, who's,
Peterson.
infected. Peterson, that's it. And running through the city.
Yeah, I don't know that they bring that back where with Weir and Shepard. Like, I was trying to remember I don't think it comes back where they never say, hey, we never finished that conversation, or we never, I need to know next time you're on my team or whatever. We do see something like that with the military and the science side, or the whatever diplomatic side of where she's leading. We see some of that later in the season, but it's not necessarily Shepard. So I was kind of, that would have been a cool thread to kind of keep going, and either in a couple episodes there's something similar and Shepard kind of defers to Weir in this, and kind of learning that he should defer to her in non-military matters. And so yeah, but they don't bring that back, so kind of a drop thread there, but it's still good kind of interaction, and I think it kind of, their relationship is mostly positive, I think, moving forward. So
yeah,
I like that we're still seeing unknown parts of the city, even we're half a season in now, and just how much they don't know about the technology they're dealing with. Like, they live there now and it's their home, but there's still a lot that can still kill them. It's a booby-trapped city.
Yeah, and I appreciate the continuity from the storm in the Eye, where parts of the city are still flooded, and that's actually causing some problems because the water damage, may have, the water flooding through the city is probably what damaged the laboratory and let the nanite virus out, because they quickly, but probably not quickly enough, deduce that this is not a natural virus. It was, made in a lab by somebody, just given the characteristics of it, the way it infects people, the same way, and with the same timetable and stuff.
They should have just stayed 6 feet apart and they'd be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm trying to resist making COVID jokes.
No, I know. It's hard.
Well, McKay had his vaccine, so he, everybody should have had their vaccine. It would have been fun.
He had his gene therapy. He had his experimental gene therapy there, so we're going to get demonetized so hard for this one. But
they also didn't do, which I think Star Trek, the original series, conditioned me to this, but they didn't do like the shaker noise when someone else gets infected when they get touched.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I guess in the naked time, whenever that disease gets transmitted, there's like this very obvious audio cue.
Yeah, and that actually would have helped, because
it would have. Yeah.
It's confusing. Dr. Peterson, transports into the mess hall, and very few people in the laboratory who have been exposed to this thing now for 5.5 hours are exhibiting symptoms, and then suddenly everybody in the mess hall is exhibiting symptoms. 4.5 hours ahead of schedule, when they do that whole like massive food fight, ballroom blitz,
Yeah, I said in the Slack, I hope somebody puts that video to music, and like dance club music, because some of the hand acting, and that was just, they looked like they were in a rave or something, just waving their hands everywhere.
And that was a confusingly filmed sequence, because I couldn't tell if everyone was just freaking out because there was an infected guy there, or they were actually infected. And if it was the former, then they did not hire any particularly resilient people to be on this crack military team.
Considering how well everybody else is keeping it together.
Yeah.
The director of this was Mario Azzopardi, who I think directed 38 Minutes previously. He directed an episode previously of Stargate Atlantis. I don't think he directs too many more, but so it is kind of a more stylized. Doesn't really, to me, feel like a Stargate episode. It seems more like it belongs in another sci-fi show, because it is very serious and procedural throughout, at least to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they don't even I don't know that you even see the gate, and they definitely don't go through the gate in this one.
Yeah. No, you don't see it at all.
Yeah, you see I mean, obviously it's Stargate, and you have the jumper and everything, but yeah, aside from that, it could have been, like you said, in another show or something.
Yeah, and there's no real. I mean, there's sort of a B story with Taylor and Shepard, but it kind of ties pretty quickly into the main plot, and you don't really get a lot there. And I guess my biggest problem was that it's pretty paint by the numbers in terms of a nanovirus outbreak science fiction episode. Like, there were no real twists. There wasn't anything really different that they did with it. Like, I was assuming that, they're going to figure out how to communicate with the nanoviruses and learn that they're not actually, like, learn that they're intelligent or something, and something more interesting than just we blast them with EMPs. Which I do like how the solution also, though, is they use an EMP and it doesn't work, so they use a bigger EMP, and that works.
Yeah, the only kind of twist is that you don't know who created this thing, because at first they're thinking, was it the Wraith who did this? But then why would they infect their own food supply? And then they said, well, it was the Ancients. No, it can't be the Ancients. And they kind of leave it up till there's a vague threat out there that we may or may not ever meet. So
we eventually do meet them, but I mean, at least in this one we do. Yeah. So yeah, I think in the original draft of the script, the EMP worked, and then that was just, the end of the episode. There wasn't really any drama there. And so I don't know if it was Brad Wright or Robert C. Cooper, one of them said, well, you can't have the first thing work. You have to, maybe detonate a nuclear device, to cause the EMP. So we get some cool VFX there, but yeah, we get to see more of the Atlantis cast, the members of the expedition than we usually do. I think we have 8 or 10 scientists. We have the entire medical team. We have, there's a doctor. Beckett has an assistant doctor whose name I cannot readily remember.
Yeah, I don't remember her much, so I don't remember.
Dr. Bureau.
Okay. Does she come back in more episodes? I feel like I don't really remember her, but
apparently she's in 3 episodes of Stargate Atlantis, one in each of seasons 1, 2, and 3. So used sparingly, but keeps calling Dr. Beckett Sir, which I'm not sure is a proper title, but
well, she might have been a military doctor.
Okay.
So she might have been just even though I don't think Beckett's military, but in Stargate Command, I mean, Dr. Fraser is in the military. She's I forget what her rank is, but she is a major. So maybe she was a military doctor and was just by habit referring to him as Sir.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible as well.
I was gonna say, and I do like how Peterson just kind of sneaks off. No one really stops him, and that kind of sets up it's kind of a ticking clock element where he's getting closer and closer to the main area.
That was something they could have set up a lot better. I mean, also there were 2 military officers with them that were kind of nudging him along. And initially, where were they? Right, and Ford is there. But also they could have set up the geography of this episode a little bit better too. At one point, Shepard says, "We're a mile away from the city in our little practice room," and we don't know exactly where the lab is. And really, we know it's outside the core of the city, so it's probably on one of those little pod things off to the side. But I think they could have at least had a VFX shot where, like, we zoom out of where the lab is and then zoom in, one shot. And I think we do more of this later in the show. We get some episodes that actually do this, where they zoom out of the one part of the city where the action's taking place and zoom in to the other part of the city, so you can actually get a feel for where these things are taking place and the spaces and the distances between them.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah, it wasn't very clear. And as great as the Blade 3 Atlantis set is, it looks the same pretty much wherever you are in the city. So you can light things a little differently, but so there wasn't really good sense of space in this, physical space in this episode, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another problem I had is that there were, like, was Peterson, and then there was another military officer, and they looked very, very similar. Like they both had the really short, cropped hair, shaved heads, and I kept getting them confused.
Yeah, and then we have another doctor who, I mean, all the doctors who have speaking parts in this, their only real purpose is to get the virus and die.
Yeah.
They don't have any real connection to any other characters. So we're like, oh, I guess
Dumais was that one.
Yeah. It's like, I guess that guy we just met now is dead. So it was, that part wasn't great, but there is one cool thing about this episode, and that's we get the first mention of McKay's sister, which actually in the script was McKay, when he thinks he's about to die and he's kind of leaving his last will and testament, if you will, to the other doctors, he mentions his sister. And in the original script, he was supposed to mention his brother, but because the actor David Hewlett has a sister, he put in that McKay also had a sister, which becomes important in a few seasons when we actually meet McKay's sister, and it's David Hewitt's actual sister playing the part of his sister.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so if he had said brother at that point, that would have cut off, them hiring his actual sister to be on the show. So that was pretty smart of him.
Yeah, his whole kind of final will and testament thing was he's just spouting off his ideas as fast as he can, and everyone's like, it's okay, you're gonna live, and he's like, no, I have to get this out. And he's saying, tell her I saved a bunch of kids, or I saved a bunch of people. No, I saved a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
It was very McKay.
Yeah.
And I think that speech was Brad Wright's idea as well, and David Hewitt ad-libbed, or basically wrote a bunch of that scene himself, putting that together. So, but I think that's probably the highlight of the episode. It's the one part of this that I did remember.
Yeah,
was him just kind of rambling on about that. Otherwise, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill procedural episode. This would be like a season 2 Next Generation episode, season 16, or episode 16 of the series, which it not bad, not good, not great.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
it's fine.
Yeah,
they didn't, and I understand why they didn't do this, but they're detonating all these EMPs, and none of their electronics seem to ever be affected, and that really bothered me.
Well, yeah, they unplugged their laptops, so didn't you see them unplug their laptops?
Well, yeah.
But all their radios and stuff still work. Yeah. And I guess like in the lab, so they have McKay's littler, EMP device, and it fires up, and Shepard hits the button, and I guess the electronics in the lab were supposed to go out, but they just didn't do that. To show that it worked inside of the lab, but not outside of the lab.
No.
So we get this awkward scene where Shepard's like, did it work? And everything's still on in the lab. And no, of course so it looks like the EMP didn't work at all, when it really, right. I think it was supposed to take out, a short distance around it, but not nearly far enough as they would need it to. So yeah, I think that was maybe a goof. We'll see if that made the goof list on any of the wikis here.
Yeah. You're not a good way to telegraph what's actually going on.
Yeah. And I was just looking at the Gate World wiki here, and the question, of course, that is on everyone's mind is, how many Naquita reactors does the Atlantis expedition still have? Because they lost one when McKay, fed the energy creature, right? And I think they've lost a couple more along the way.
The same number of shuttlecrafts that the Voyager has.
Yeah. Yeah. While that was on all the web, all the forums and stuff, the tagline for that was not another shuttlecraft, or lost another shuttlecraft, because eventually when they get the Delta Flyer, they're a little bit more,
until they build a new one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Which they do.
Yeah. I guess it's a similar thing, though. You have as many Naquita generators as the plot requires you to have.
Yeah, but we know they need, from the storm in the eye, we know they need 5 just to keep the city running, basically.
Yeah.
So hopefully they never dip below that, or they're in trouble.
Yeah, and they must have. I don't know how long a Naquita reactor lasts before needing refueling, but they would have had to bring a bunch of Naquita too, because I don't think they ever reference that they find Naquita in Pegasus. So I don't know. I don't know if the ancients just, it just wasn't a thing because they didn't have the Gould, and the Wraith kind of had their own ship designs and stuff. But I don't know if they just never reference that, or if the Atlantis gates are something different. But I assume the gates at least are Naquita.
What is the half-life of Naquita? That's what I want to know. I'm sure that there's an answer out there.
Yeah, if you do know, leave a comment.
Yeah, let us know.
Another nice reference was McKay saying that he'd been around more EMPs than anyone, which was a reference to when Anubis was trying to overload the gate, and he had the great idea to use the EMP to shut it down, and that's what wound up like frying Carter's hand. So this time the EMP actually worked.
Sensing a theme here, he just likes to use EMPs to solve problems.
Yeah, much like science fiction writers in general.
True. So do we get a resolution on where these nanites came from later on in the show?
Yes. Yeah, I think it might be season 3 maybe. I don't know if it comes back in season 2.
Yeah. I think it's season 3. We find out kind of who is who's basically failsafe is to just kill all the humans in the Pegasus galaxy.
Cool.
To stop the Wraith, yeah. So
it's just Bender from Futurama. I'm kidding.
Hey, meat sacks.
Kill all humans.
Yeah.
I would accept that as a canonical answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's an episode, all right.
It definitely is.
I'm curious how Bates continues to have a job, because he was kind of defiant of Shepard before in whatever episode that was, where they were tracked. There was the Wraith were always finding them on their missions, and he ended up being right though. But then in this one, he defies Weir's orders straight to her face, basically. But he stays around. I can't remember if he stays around the entire run of the show or if he drops off at some point. But
he might drop off in season 3 or season 4. I think we see less of him, but yeah, I mean, as a military person, he kind of had to obey Shepard. Shepard was very wrong to disobey Weir, although he was right in the sense that if he didn't go get the hazmat suits, he wouldn't have been able to. The city would have been locked down by the time he needed the hazmat suits to maneuver around the city. But yes, and we finally do at the end of this episode finally get like a scene where she is starting to call him to the carpet, and then McKay and Beckett come in, which was, kind of unfulfilling. I wanted to see the resolution of that scene, because Shepard is just playing it off. It's like, I'm the major and everything is fine, and she's like, no, everything is not fine. You are bad. And he's like, no, I'm good. But it would have been cool to see the ending of that scene, and we don't get it.
Mm-hmm. We don't get any sort of...
I was saying, like, I'm going to go take a nap or something, and Weir's like, we need to talk about this. He's like, now, Mom, come on.
Yeah.
This is called a personal improvement plan, and we're going to put you on it. Yeah.
I have a feeling he would leave that just under his chair.
Yeah.
See, I couldn't do that. I worry too much when someone says they need to talk or they have something they need to talk about. I'd be like, okay, let's figure it out right now. I couldn't say I'm going to go
exactly. How much do you know?
What did I do wrong?
That's my unannounced one-on-one appear on your calendar. Oh no.
Yeah.
How am I getting fired? Yeah.
Exactly. For which specific thing? Yeah. Yeah. So there are some good personal moments, but didn't really feel Stargate-y enough for me.
It was very generic sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, at the same time, if you're I don't know how many seasons they were planning on, but I mean, in 100 episodes, I think is what it got. You're gonna have a few, and I feel like this is better than some of the early SG1 episodes because there's some
totally
pretty bad ones early. So they at least learn. I really don't think of any Atlantis episodes that I can point out to, and then I'm like, oh, that was like I'm never gonna watch that one again. I think they're all at least watchable compared to some of the SG1. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've rewatched all of them, but
yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. It was just it was fine.
we did have some alternate languages for this.
Yes. What are those?
Well, in Minnesota, this episode is called Hot Dish.
Nice.
No, that's they weren't really. Like in French, this is called like virus or virus, and then in German, it was just called Hot Zone, which I was disappointed with.
It's all nanites. It's something.
Yeah.
I did see that in Hungarian, it is called Dangerous Zone, which now I just want a Hungarian translated version of Highway to the Dangerous Zone.
Highway to the Dangerous Zone.
They should put that over Shepard's flying the jumper and to drop the generator.
Yes.
And actually, Hot Zone does refer to a specific area where there is a high risk of contamination by patients with an infectious disease. So that tracks at least. We got the super literal title in English, I guess.
Could have called it Robot Quarantine.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
I did like the very Spirit Halloween visual effects that you get when they're having the hallucinations. The ghost like superimposed right on the screen.
Yeah, and Brad Wright did meet with the visual effects team and say, look, if these ghosts look silly, the whole episode doesn't work. And so the visual effects team was trying to make them not look silly. Fortunately, they only show them in, brief glimpses, which it doesn't make any sense why that would be what you would have. It just doesn't make any sense why, if you could give someone visions with a virus like that, why you would even need to, or just, blow up their brain. And second, if you could give them visions, why would you give them something that would make them run away from people? You would want to give them visions that would make them run towards people to, infect as many people as possible. But like giant, like stuffed teddy bears that want to hug you or something, and then
I would run away from that.
Okay. Maybe I'm the only one.
Maybe their understanding of human psychology is very poor, and they think that this is gonna. Maybe they think you'll run to someone to ask for help, or other people will run to them because they're freaking out.
Yeah, and I guess that's what did happen. So, but we get lots of sawing into people's brains more than we get in a normal Stargate episode. So
we could use more of that.
Yeah, I guess.
Stargate Trepan.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any other thoughts on this episode?
No.
No, I don't actually.
Well, before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create a Secrets of Stargate, including Mark T, Sherbil B, Jimmy N, Michael L, and Camden O. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find the video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And to find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. And you can email us that information about the Half-Life of Naquita at stargate@sqpn.com, and follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And we'll be back next time with the next episode of SG1. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack. And so I suck at Prime, not Prime. Somehow I'm going to sleep tonight.
Speaking of Prime, you can watch all the Stargate episodes there.
Yeah, they just added Atlantis back, so
there you go.
It's very good news.
This is not an ad for Amazon, I promise.
No.
And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?